Okay, and continue with our interview. Okay. How did you prepare for this line of work?
Well, in my personal case, it was just a collaboration of all of my jobs. I have both a medical background and administrative. So my employment at Blue Cross Blue Shield really helped me the most. I worked in the federal department of Blue Cross and Blue Shield of Florida for 14 years.
Wow.
And pretty much I did everything. I was in customer service, which I helped people to explain to them their claims process as far as if something paid or didn't pay, why it was denied. I explained benefits to them. I explained their deductible, the copay, pretty much anything that had to do with customer service and health insurance. I spoke with providers and assisted and taught them how to appropriately bill their claims. And I also worked in the claims entry department, which was just entering claims into the system, using the proper procedure coding, the CPT coding, the ICD-9 coding. And I also was a lead translator, so I translated documents and assisted claimants in Spanish and English.
Okay. Okay. And then if I were entering into this profession, how can I evaluate myself to know if this job fits me?
Well, I think the biggest thing mostly is when people actually get the job. It's hard to know whether or not you're going to be a fit for the job until you actually get it, unfortunately, because this is a job where you can't really be trained for it. You have to learn by doing it. You have to apply everything. So whenever you go, you actually get the job, you get what is called an overview. And it's called that for a reason.
Okay.
It's not a training. In most companies, they put you through an actual training where you'll go to 2 weeks, 3 weeks, how much ever time for training. With this job, you may have a week of an overview, and they just explain to you when the program came into existence, which was in 2001. And in 2001, what happened is that employees were not being properly compensated for illnesses, and they were becoming sick with the different cancers and asbestosis and mesothelioma, and they were hiring attorneys, but they really didn't have a mode by which they could claim for benefits or for compensation because it didn't exist. So pretty much what happened is a lot of representatives got together, and Congress actually backed it to create this program. So this program is a unique program, something that's not done often in the government. You don't see this often in the government, but they created the program in 2001. There was one part created, which was Part B. The program has two parts, a Part B and a Part E. Part E came along in approximately 2005, 2006. And the difference between the two is Part B is for persons who've been affected by cancer. So due to radiation exposure from working at the sites like the Savannah River plant, the Y12 plant in Oak Ridge, Tennessee, the K25 gaseous diffusion plant, and the X10 National Laboratory, or Area 51, which I'm sure everybody's heard of that one. That's a popular one. Basically, what happens is these persons working in these sites are exposed to a lot of toxic substances because the reasoning or the actual reason for the program is because of the fact that their work with toxic exposure was, it actually exposed them to radiation. So they were creating things using like atomic bomb type materials. And so because of that, they were exposed to these chemicals, and that's how they got these illnesses. And then Part E is strictly for toxic substances. So the difference is under Part B, it would be exposure to radiation strictly. And in Part E, it's as a result of a toxic substance. So our job is to prove that either the person was subjected to substantial toxic substances or radiation, and as a result, it can be based on the preponderance of the evidence that this person actually was diagnosed with these conditions because of their exposure, or the evidence is not sufficient to substantiate that these persons were actually exposed to enough of radiation or toxic substance that caused the illness, and instead the illness actually came about through some other means.
So to know background on the chemicals and the radiation types would be helpful also, or is that something that you learn as you go along?
It's definitely something that you learn as you go along. I mean, a lot of people have had experience in working. Some of the employees have worked previously with OSHA, so they do have the background in the toxic substances. As for myself, I didn't have that side of it. I just had the health side of it in working with Blue Cross, and I also worked with Visiting Nurse Association in Jacksonville and in Brooklyn. Okay. So I had, as far as the ICD-9 coding, the CPT codes, I was very familiar with the different types of illnesses and with being able to read medical documentation, physicians' handwriting and such. But as far as the toxic substances, it's something that you learn as you go along the way, because there's so many substances that I had never even heard of before I got this job. So you learn a lot.
And then one last question, communication. How do you deal with the communication within the department you work in? Do you find a lot of barriers? Do you find yourself having to communicate with people that are not willing to communicate back? I mean, how do you get what you need, and how do you get people to hear what you have to say?
As far as my coworkers or the outside person?
Coworkers.
That's a whole long story. Just like every other job, you have coworkers that you are very close to, that you're friends, that you eat lunch with, that you really talk to. Then you have other coworkers that you may just socialize with just professionally. And that's pretty much how it is. You have some people that, there's some ladies that I go to lunch with every day, and we've become rather close since I've been there. Then you have other people that I'm friendly with, but I don't talk to a lot. You have a whole lot of different personalities into play when you work in the government, because people come from all walks of life. People come from, different countries, different backgrounds. And so dealing with personalities is always difficult. It can always be complex and trying, but we have to depend on each other. So I guess different from most jobs, in most jobs like private industry, you perform your job, whatever your specific duty is, pretty much on your own. With us, a lot of the research and a lot of the writing of the decisions, of the recommendations, and responding to, emails and faxes and just whatever else we do on our own. However, we have to have a person to review our material before it goes out the door. So you have to rely on someone else who is going to review your evidence and review your recommendation before it even goes out the door. Once it goes out the door, some of our cases go to Washington, D.C., and then they're reviewed by a final adjudication branch again. So everything's re-reviewed. So we depend on interoffice, other persons in other departments too, to help us to get the information that we need from the Department of Energy, where the people have worked, and they would have their subcontractor information. And we have to rely on the mail service. We have to rely on doctors and hospitals to provide us with the medical information if we can't get it. We rely on funeral homes in some cases, vital statistics.
So you have to have some type of rapport with pretty much anybody you come in contact with.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. And you definitely don't want to burn your bridges, because there are times when, your case may not get out on time, may not get completed on time, which is very bad. But it's just really like a village or a group effort, because no one person is completely responsible for their work. You have to depend on other people. So sometimes the other people can make you miss your deadline, make you miss your goal. and that counts against you in your reviews. So it's really, to your best ability that you have to perform your part of the job to make the other parts go smoother with the other persons, and you want to make sure you do everything timely so that when you bring the other people into the mix, you're not at the last minute, because if you're at the last minute and those persons don't move as quickly as you do, then you can miss your deadline. So it's imperative that you have a good relationship with everybody.
Okay. Well, you have definitely opened our eyes to the Department of Energy. I know I was thinking something totally different from begin when we started, but thank you very much for participating, and I've learned a lot, and so I hope the rest of the class or whoever sees this learns a lot as well. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Thank you.